I live in a small apartment building on the edge of town. Nothing fancy. Beige carpet, thin walls, the kind of place you rent because it's cheap, close to work, and you don't plan on staying forever. I work nights at a logistics warehouse, 12-hour shifts, lots of standing, lots of repetition. By the time I get home, my body feels hollowed out, like I've already been asleep for hours and just forgot to lie down. I rent this place because I can't afford anything better right now. Breaking the lease would wipe out what little savings I have. Moving isn't an option. That's important to understand. I can't just leave. For the first 6 months, everything was normal, quiet even. The building only has tenants on the first 3 floors. I'm on the top one, or at least I thought I was. The 4th floor is sealed. That's what the building manager told me when I signed the lease. Said it like it was a footnote, an afterthought. Old fire damage, she said. Nothing up there. Stairwell's locked. Elevator doesn't go that high. I didn't question it. Why would I? The first night I heard the footsteps, I assumed I was mistaken. I just crawled into bed after a double shift. The room was dark, except for the glow of my phone on the nightstand. I was half asleep when I heard it. A slow step, then another, directly above me. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. My first thought was simple. Someone moved in upstairs. Maybe they reopened the floor. Maybe I just missed the memo. Then I remembered. There is no upstairs. The footsteps weren't heavy. No stomping, no rushing, just deliberate, like someone pacing, heel to toe, taking their time. They crossed the ceiling from left to right, then stopped. I waited for them to start again. They didn't. Instead, I heard something else, a chair scraping across the floor. Not dragged wildly, not shoved, pulled, slowly. The sound of wood legs resisting concrete. It made my teeth itch. The scrape lasted maybe 5 seconds, then stopped, right above my bed. I checked the time, 2:14 a.m. I told myself it was pipes. Old buildings make noises. I've lived in enough of them to know that. Water pressure, temperature shifts, structural settling. Still, pipes don't sound like footsteps. The next morning, I asked the building manager about it. She frowned the way people do when they're trying to remember something they're sure they shouldn't have to. Someone upstairs? She repeated. No, that floor has been sealed since before I started working here. I asked her how long that was. She hesitated. 8 years. I laughed it off, said it was probably just noise traveling weirdly through the building. She nodded a little too quickly, like she was relieved I'd offered the explanation myself. That should have been my first red flag. The second night, it happened again. Same time, 2:14 a.m. Footsteps, slow, measured, crossing the ceiling. Then the chair, scrape, stop. I lay there holding my breath, listening so hard my ears rang. I waited for something else, a cough, a creak, anything human. Nothing came. By the third night, I started recording it on my phone. The audio caught the scraping sound clearly. The footsteps came through faintly, distorted, like they were happening underwater. When I played it back in the morning, something felt off. The footsteps didn't echo. In my apartment, when someone walks above you, there's a sense of depth to the sound, distance, variation. These steps sounded flat, too close, as if the ceiling wasn't a ceiling at all, but a thin layer stretched tight over empty space. I checked the hallway outside my unit. There was no stairwell going up, no emergency exit, just a locked metal door at the end with a sign bolted over it. No access, structural hazard. I tried the handle anyway. It didn't budge. I started sleeping with the light on. That's when the pattern changed. On the fourth night, the footsteps didn't cross the room. They stopped directly above my bed. One step, pause. Another step, pause. Like whoever was up there knew exactly where I was lying. The chair scraped once. Then, twice. Shorter this time, as if it was being adjusted, positioned. I rolled onto my side and pressed my face into the pillow, trying not to think about angles, about weight distribution, about how ceilings work. I told myself I was exhausted, that my brain was misfiring. I haven't been sleeping well for months. Night shift does that to you, makes everything feel unreal. But exhaustion doesn't explain why, when I finally worked up the nerve to check the building plans online, the public records showed something strange. The fourth floor wasn't listed as sealed. It wasn't listed at all. No square footage, no units, just a blank space above the third floor, like someone erased it and forgot to fill the gap. That night, my phone lost signal at exactly 2:13 a.m. At 2:14, the footsteps began. This time, there was no chair. Instead, I heard something new. A soft thump, directly above my pillow, as if something had leaned down and pressed its weight against the ceiling. I don't know how long I lay there without moving. I don't remember falling asleep. What I do remember is waking up to the sound of scraping again. But this time, it wasn't above me. It was coming from inside my apartment, and it stopped right next to my bed. I woke up standing. That was the first thing that felt wrong. I wasn't lying in bed when my eyes opened. I was upright, barefoot on the cold carpet, facing the wall beside my bed. My phone was still on the nightstand, screen dark. The lamp was on. I don't remember turning it on. For a few seconds, my brain tried to smooth it over. Sleepwalking, stress, night shift messing with my head. I've always been bad at sleeping. I've woken up sitting before. Once, years ago, I woke up with my keys in my hand and no memory of picking them up. But I've never woken up standing inches from a wall, heart pounding, like I'd been listening for something. The scraping sound was gone. The apartment was quiet in that hollow way it gets just before dawn. No cars, no voices, just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint ringing in my ears that comes after a loud noise stops suddenly. I checked the time, 2:27 a.m. I was late. Whatever had been happening upstairs always started at 2:14. It never lasted more than a few minutes. This time, I'd missed most of it. I stood there for a while, trying to remember how I got out of bed. My sheets were twisted, pulled halfway off the mattress like I'd thrashed around. The pillow was on the floor. I picked it up and froze. There was dust on it. Not the normal kind, not lint or fabric fuzz. This was gray and powdery like concrete dust. It streaked across the pillowcase in a curved smear, as if something had pressed against it from above. I looked up at the ceiling. Nothing looked different. No cracks, no stains, just the same dull off-white paint it's always been. I didn't go back to sleep after that. The next morning, I called in sick. My supervisor wasn't happy about it. I've already used up most of my days, but I couldn't face another shift on no sleep, not with my nerves buzzing like exposed wires. I went down to the office when the building manager came in. Her name is Marlene, late 50s, always smells like strong coffee and cigarettes. She's worked here long enough that she treats the place like it belongs to her personally. I told her I needed to talk. She sighed and followed me into her office, already annoyed. I played her the audio from my phone, the footsteps, the scraping. I watched her face while she listened. She didn't interrupt, didn't scoff, didn't smile. That worried me more than anything. When the recording ended, she set the phone down very carefully, like it was fragile. "That's not possible," she said. "You told me the floor above is sealed," I said. "That sound is coming from directly above my unit." She rubbed her forehead. "That floor has been closed since before you moved in." I asked her again why. This time, she didn't answer right away. "There was a tenant up there," she said, finally. "A long time ago." "What happened to them?" She looked at the door, then back at me, lowered her voice. "They never officially moved out," she said. "They stopped paying rent, stopped answering calls. When we went up to check, the unit was wrong." I asked her what that meant. She shook her head. "We sealed the floor. That's all you need to know." I told her I was hearing someone move furniture, that it always stopped above my bed, that it felt like someone knew where I was. Her jaw tightened. "Listen," she said, "if this is about getting out of your lease, that's not happening. The building is up to code. You signed the agreement." I wasn't thinking about the lease. Not yet. I was thinking about the dust on my pillow, about waking up standing, about how flat the footsteps sounded. "I think someone's up there," I said. "I think they're coming down." She stood up so abruptly her chair scraped the floor. The sound made my stomach drop. "That's enough," she said. "Go home, get some rest." As I left the office, I noticed something I hadn't before. On the wall behind her desk was a framed evacuation map of the building. Floors 1 through 3 were labeled clearly: apartments, stairwells, exits. Above the 3rd floor was a faded rectangle with no markings, not labeled sealed, not labeled closed, just empty. That night, I didn't go to bed. I sat on the couch with all the lights on, coffee going cold on the table, eyes locked on the ceiling. Midnight passed. 1 o'clock. My phone kept signal this time. At 2:13, the signal dropped to 0 bars. Anyway. At 2:14, the footsteps started. They were closer now, not moving across the ceiling, just pacing in a tight circle, back and forth, over and over. Then the chair scraped, longer than before, slower, like it was being dragged into position with care. I felt the vibration through the couch cushions. Something shifted above me, a low groan like old wood under strain. Then came a sound I hadn't heard yet, a soft knock, from the ceiling. One knock, pause, another, directly above where I was sitting. I didn't move. I couldn't. My chest felt locked, like my ribs were wired shut. The knocking continued, slow, patient, always in pairs. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The apartment went silent again. My phone buzzed in my hand as the signal came back. A notification popped up. Unknown device connected. I don't own any smart devices. I stared at the message, my pulse roaring in my ears. Then something heavy shifted above me again, and I realized the footsteps weren't above my bed anymore. They were directly above my front door. I didn't answer the door. I don't mean I hesitated and chose not to. I physically couldn't make myself stand. My legs felt locked in place, like my body had already decided that moving would make things worse. The footsteps above the door stopped. Then came the chair. Scrape. This time it sounded closer, deeper, like the weight behind it had increased. I imagined the chair being positioned carefully, legs set down one by one. I hated how precise the sound was. The knocking didn't come from the ceiling again. It came from the door itself. 2 soft knocks, knuckles on wood. Pause. 2 more. Exactly the same rhythm as before. I stayed frozen on the couch, barely breathing. The lights were still on, but they suddenly felt useless, like stage lights illuminating something I wasn't supposed to see. "Hello?" a voice said. It was quiet, calm, close enough that I could hear the shape of the word more than the sound. It sounded like me, not a perfect imitation, just familiar. Same cadence, same tired edge, like a recording played back slightly warped. My throat tightened. I didn't answer. The handle didn't turn. Whoever it was didn't try the lock. That felt deliberate, like they knew it was locked and were waiting for permission. "Maintenance," the voice said. That's when something clicked. No one ever says maintenance in this building. They say the manager's name, or they text first, or they leave a note taped crookedly to the door. I glanced at my phone. No signal again. No notifications. The earlier alert about an unknown device was gone, like it had never been there. The footsteps above shifted. I heard them move away from the door, back toward the center of the apartment, toward my bedroom, toward my bed. I stood up without thinking and followed the sound, my heart slamming so hard it made my vision pulse. Each step I took felt wrong, like I was moving out of sync with the room. The footsteps stopped directly above the bed. The chair scraped once more. Then the ceiling creaked. A fine line appeared in the paint, running straight down from the center of the fan ceiling. Dust drifted out, slow and lazy, catching in the light. I stepped back just as something pressed down from above, not enough to break through, just enough to bow the ceiling slightly, to show weight, intent. I realized then what the chair was for. It wasn't being dragged randomly. It was being positioned so someone could stand on it, to reach down. A crackling sound came from my phone. The screen lit up by itself. A live audio recording was playing. I could hear my own breathing through the speaker, slow, shallow, recorded from somewhere inside the room. I backed into the wall, my spine cold against the paint. "Stop," I said. My voice sounded thin, small. The pressure eased. For a moment I thought it was over. Then the ceiling fan clicked on. I hadn't touched the switch. The fan blades began to turn, slow at first, wobbling slightly as dust rained down. Something brushed against the spinning blades from above, something solid enough to make a dull, wet sound. The fan sped up. The ceiling bulged again. Then the pressure disappeared completely. Silence. No footsteps. No scraping. No knocking. Just the fan humming overhead. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't turn off the fan. I sat on the floor against the wall and watched the ceiling until the sun came up. In the morning, There was a voicemail on my phone. No missed call, just a message. I hit play. At first, it was just static, then a faint sound underneath it. Footsteps, slow, measured. Then my own voice, distorted but unmistakable. "I'm home," it said. I deleted the message and packed a bag. I went back to the building office to demand out of my lease. Marlene wasn't there. The door was locked. A handwritten sign was taped to the glass. Office closed, temporarily. The evacuation map was gone from the wall. In its place was a fresh one. New ink, clean lines. This time, the fourth floor was labeled. 1 unit, directly above mine. Occupied. That night, I stayed at a friend's place across town, slept on their couch, lights off, quiet. At 2:14 a.m., my phone vibrated. A notification. Unknown device disconnected. Under it, another message appeared. A voicemail from my own number. I didn't listen to it. I don't need to. Because when I rolled over, half asleep, I saw something that made my blood turn to ice. A thin line of gray dust on the couch, curved, like something had leaned down from above. And just before I closed my eyes, I heard a familiar sound. Slow footsteps, not on the ceiling, on the floor, right outside the room. I didn't move. I don't mean I was scared to. I mean my body understood something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. That the footsteps outside the room weren't approaching. They had already arrived. They stopped just past the doorway. I could hear the faint shift of weight, fabric brushing fabric, someone standing there, deciding whether to come in. My friend's apartment was silent, no traffic noise, no hum of appliances, just the sound of my own breathing and the slow, deliberate inhale coming from the other side of the wall. I watched the dust on the couch cushion. It hadn't come from the ceiling. This apartment had another unit above it. I knew that. I'd been here before. I'd helped move furniture. There was nothing sealed, nothing missing, which meant the dust came from something leaning over me. I reached for my phone with shaking hands. The screen lit up instantly, full signal, no glitches. A new voicemail notification sat at the top of the screen. One new message from me. Against every instinct I had left, I pressed play. The message started with silence, then a faint rustling sound, like fabric shifting close to a microphone. Then my voice, not distorted this time, not warped or stretched, clear, calm. "Hey," it said, "I'm inside." I felt the air change. The footsteps resumed, slow and soft, crossing the floor toward the couch. Each step landed with the exact same weight and rhythm as mine. No hesitation, no urgency. I slid off the couch and backed toward the bathroom, never taking my eyes off the doorway. The light from the hallway was dim, but I could see a shape standing there now. My height, my build, my posture. It didn't rush me, didn't reach out. It just watched. That's when I noticed the smell. Concrete dust, old wood, stale air that hadn't moved in years. "You don't live here," I whispered. It tilted its head the way I do when I'm confused. "I do now," it said. "You don't." Something scraped behind it. A chair, dragged slowly across the floor somewhere deeper in the apartment. I ran. I don't remember unlocking the bathroom door or slamming it shut. I remember the mirror, because when I looked up, I wasn't alone in it. The reflection lagged, just a fraction of a second, barely noticeable, but enough. The reflection smiled before I did. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. I didn't answer it. I smashed the phone against the sink until the screen went black. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The footsteps stopped. So did the breathing. I stayed in that bathroom until morning, shaking, listening for any sound at all. When I finally opened the door, the apartment was empty. No dust, no footprints, no chair out of place. My friend was asleep on the other side of the apartment, undisturbed. I didn't go back to my old unit. I didn't go back to the building. I quit my job, lost my deposit, slept in my car for a week before finding a new place across town. Ground floor, no unit above me. For a while, it worked. No footsteps, no scraping, no glitches. Then, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper, an updated building directory. My old building, floors 1 through 3 listed as usual. The 4th floor was still there, 1 unit. Under occupant, it had my name. Below that, in smaller print, previous resident, vacated. Last night, at 2:14 a.m., I heard a familiar sound, a chair scraping. Not above me, not beside me, behind me. And just before the footsteps started, I felt the mattress dip slightly, like someone sitting down very carefully, exactly where they know I sleep. I haven't turned around yet. I don't think I'm supposed to. And I'm starting to realize something I wish I'd understood sooner. That floor was never sealed to keep something in. It was sealed to make sure only one of us could leave.